We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words that make...
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. The three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And it's good evening to George, to Mitch and to Steve as we have 2 hours live of your favourite show of the week. And plenty to talk about, as always, about Newcastle United. And lots of stuff coming in, including a request early on there. I'm sure you saw it on the screen. Can we talk about NUFC's ticketing policy, please? It's always worth an hour of time. You're naughty. You're very naughty. But yeah, I'm sure we might come across the tickets at some point. Who knows? We will start with this though, because we got this in pretty early on, just before I went away to work for a week, and it was from Lee Errington. He said, "What a week this has been. 2 questions for tonight, if possible. Are we seeing the next level of Eddie's coaching, and are we seeing Eddie perfecting the mind games like Alex Ferguson?" Good question, that, Lee. I'm glad I kept a hold of it, because there was a piece after the Manchester United game, and I did love this. He says this was in the papers. Just before completing his final media appearance of a joyous evening at Old Trafford, Eddie Howe was asked by a reporter from the Newcastle Chronicle why he brought on 2 attacking substitutes, Bruno Guimaraes and Callum Wilson, only 4 minutes after his team had gone 3-0 up. Did he do so, the reporter asked, because he wanted to rack up an even bigger winning margin in the 26 minutes that remained? Howe responded in the negative, claiming instead that the intention was to give minutes to players so they could use it as their training session. Howe probably didn't mean it as a dig, but his words were damning. The once mighty fortress of Old Trafford, where United went 31 matches unbeaten under Ten Hag, had been used as a training pitch for Newcastle's substitutes. George, I loved that. And I kept it for the Amigos this week. I thought that was wonderful by Howe, and I think it was deliberate. I've got to be honest. I think he's got a little bit of a problem, I think, with Ten Hag. Quite a little bit of mind games from Ten Hag prior to the cup final, after the cup final. We saw his reaction on the Amazon TV documentary where he swore and said what he wanted Newcastle to do against Manchester United. So, unbelievably, for anyone to think that wasn't deliberate, I think it was, George. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think Eddie Howe's still learning to be a manager, and he's putting into practice some of the things he's learning. As far as I'm concerned, he had that sabbatical, and whatever happened in those year and a half that he was away out of Premier League and all that sort of stuff, he's put it to good use, because he's picked up a lot of stuff, not just in coaching, but in how to present himself, how to present his club and represent his club. And yes, I agree with you that it looks accidental, but I can't believe that it was. It was him saying to Ten Hag, well, you know, you got your cup, but you're not going to get away with everything. And it was as straight as that. Because Ten Hag was quite quite picky after the cup final, I thought, over the top. He'd won. What the hell did he want to do? Did he want to rub Eddie Howe's nose in it? Well, Eddie Howe came back and rubbed his nose in it at Old Trafford. I'm delighted. Couldn't happen to a nicer man in a nicer club, to be perfectly honest. So yes, I agree with you. It to the naive, it could look accidental, but to anybody that knows out about the game, that wasn't an accident. It was nicely intended in the way in which it was, because he had a strong position. He didn't need to make excuses and so on. He just said it as he felt it, and I thought that was wonderful. And as I say, for me, couldn't happen to a nicer place. I mean, Manchester United, for God's sake, they've been our nemesis for years. Not just this year, but yeah. Well done, Eddie Howard. And as I say, it's part of our manager growing up himself into the role, because he has managed a bit, but not at this level. This is a new level for him as well. So he's having to get used to all of that. But in my thinking, he's just sailing through it. He couldn't be better if he tried. So yes, accident? No, I don't think so. But well done as far as I'm concerned.
Mitch, bit of psychology, bit of giving Manchester United a taste of their own medicine is how I saw that.
Yeah, and I'll say Eddie Howe was having a very definitely a ruthless edge to him that he hides very well. But I think in there is a ruthlessness, and that comes out in moments like that. That's sort of cold hard killer talk, and I'm all for it. And put it into context of what's happened in the subsequent week and a half, with more experienced managers pretty much losing their minds in front of the TV cameras. And none of that from Eddie. None at all. In fact, quite the opposite, sticking it back at one of those managers. And and on the coaching side, I can't think of a single player who's done anything other than advance as a player under Eddie Howe. I can't think of a player who's gone backwards. Everybody looks better, looks fitter, looks hungrier, looks more determined, looks like they're able to drag the best out of their own ability. And so, yeah, his advancement as a coach and as a leader in the dressing room is clear for everybody to see. And that was no accident at all.
Steve, thoughts on it?
17:07 it says on my laptop here in the top corner, which is 5 minutes past 7. 7 minutes past 5. And it's given with that little bit of time to get Mitch's favourite word out, which is shithousery, because that's what it was. It was Eddie Howe coming up with what Mitch loves to see on the media. Absolutely brilliant. And I agree with the guys. I mean, it shows how sort of a level of one-upmanship that you can get very, very easily, and how you can very, very, very easily get under somebody's skin without them even knowing it at the time, which was very, very clever. And Mitch is right. You see Arteta for one, Klopp yesterday as another. Shows you the pressure these guys are under, if nothing else. And then you see the dignified way that Eddie coped on Tuesday night after a defeat. Very, very dignified. Understood exactly where his team was, understood what had happened on the pitch, was able to take it and move on. And hopefully we'll see a bounce tomorrow. And as for the coaching, yeah, absolutely. I think in every game we see different elements of Eddie Howe's coaching. I've always been a critic of his use of substitutes, and that's improved immensely this season. The time that he brings his substitutes on, the way that he brings them on, what he has them doing, whether it's to come on to change the shape of a game or whether it's to come on to try and win a game. Everything's coming off for him at the moment. But that's because of the hard work that he's done. I listened to a little piece where somebody was talking about Eddie Howe in particular and the way Newcastle line up compared to other teams. And it's interesting that the Europeans who still tend to go in for the 4-4-2 or a 4-2-4, which is really a 4-4-2 where they just push the wingers on when they can. And yet Eddie and a lot of other British coaches and coaches in the Premiership who prefer the 4-3-3. And Eddie does it to perfection. His team works well. And I think you saw Danny Murphy on Match of the Day just showing the amount of work rate that the players do in supporting each other. Sometimes a game is won by what happens off the ball as much as what happens on the ball. And we're seeing some great examples of it at the moment because the team spirit is so good. The team itself has been worked so well on the training pitch. And it's just great to watch, Steve. An absolute joy. And it's now 9 minutes past, and I'll say shithousery again just for Mitch.
Yeah, lots of people enjoy watching the press conference. We do our press conference review as well. I enjoy watching it. I watch the pre-game presser every week. Can't believe we've got such a composed and eloquent manager. I've never seen him give a negative remark about another team before or after games, which is so professional. Barry says, loved Howe's conference today. He's an expert at dealing with awkward questions. Loved his chat about Miley's future. He is a master when dealing with knackers. And Mozza says, did somebody mention tickets? Me and Alan McKenzie got ours for Man U today in the ballot. Yippee. Mark Ritchie as well says, to be fair, I don't think he was lying about it being a training session because he's admitted they can't really train much, but he knew it would knew prior to that it would hit a nerve. Yeah, lots of people putting in comments in the chat. If you want to do so, we'll try and read them out on screen. Please get them over to us. Lots of questions coming in, which is nice because we never planned this show, and you would hate radio silence. So, Michael, we'll go with yours. Question: I'm sure you'll be discussing this, but why hasn't the club started to flex its legal muscle yet with regards to all these rule changes? Or do you feel that this latest one could be the straw that broke the camel's back, as it's surely targeting a member team now and a clear obstruction to free trade and competition? Mitch, I'm going to come to you with this one to start with. This is an interesting topic, and Eddie Howe was asked about it in his press conference today. As you would imagine, you got short shrift when you asked that question to Eddie Howe because he's not going to answer it, and he did it politely, just essentially said, "I'm not going to ask. I can't answer that question." He was asked it on numerous occasions by different journalists, Craig Hope, Luke Edwards, all trying to ask him in a different kind of way. Admittedly, it was quite humorous the way they did it. Martin Hardy said he was carrying the baton and he was going to try asking it in a different way, but the answer was simple. It's not my remit to answer those questions. It's not my job. My job's on the training ground and getting the team ready for the matches. And we will abide by the rules. That's what he said. But do you think that there will be some kind of objection? Because Amanda Staveley's gone on record. She's not happy with the way things have gone in the past. And I would imagine that they're, still in the same kind of mindset with regards to this. So what's your views on this? Do you think we'll see any action by the club?
This one now isn't even being vaguely disguised. It's quite pointed. It's quite deliberate. You can't interpret it any other way. I find it amazing the Premier League can take forever to sort Everton out, and even longer to sort Man City out. But by God, when they want to make a rule change at the behest of a couple of member clubs, and it involves us, the sharp get their act in order. And as they've proved in the past, when they make decisions in haste, they often mess it up. And that's where legal challenges could be introduced. And I think if it continues the way it's going, it wouldn't surprise me to see the club snap eventually and say, right, sod this. We've got nothing to lose. This enough's enough. I'm curious to see how some of the other clubs react, because there are other clubs in the Premier League who are part of multi-club ownership structures, who have agreements with other clubs as nursery clubs and things like that. Now, whether it falls under co-ownership or not, that's probably a different discussion again. But some of those turkeys are now being asked to vote for Christmas. They're being asked to vote for something which will shoot themselves in the foot.
Yep.
Brighton. Crystal Palace, 2 just off the top of my head. Man City, Chelsea. There was no uproar when Watford and Udinese were bouncing teams back and players back and forth. There's been no discussion about Nottingham Forest and Olympiacos bouncing players back and forth. None whatsoever. So suddenly there's a suggestion that we might want to do something. We haven't even done it yet. And they're getting their knickers in a twist about it. I think Ashworth was very cute to go on the record ahead of time and suggest that this is where this was going to go. Because he'd obviously got wind of it. The club had obviously got wind of it. I always have problems when governing bodies of any sport suddenly decide in the middle of the season, let's change the rules. You've got to wonder what motivations are behind it. But this one, like I said at the start, it's not even being put behind a thin veil. And as ever, for now, I think the club will find a way around things that's proper and right. I noticed that they made a little dig somewhere about the seller sponsorship, and that would have to prove that there was multiple bids and da-di-da-di-da, and that they were all at about the same value. Well, actually, we know 100% there were multiple bids all around the same value for the shirt sponsorship. And that seller actually won that in a very fair and proper way. And I know there's paperwork there to demonstrate it. But that shows you how carefully they're already treading. And they've seen some of this coming automatically. And I don't wonder if what Dan Ashworth's done by chucking out that little line last week, that's what, go and look at the shiny things and the squirrel in the corner while we'll get about our business in the background and we're off doing something totally different, while the rest of the Premier League's getting their knickers in a twist about that. We're actually working away at something else. That's my take on it for now. However, if it continues to become so blatant, if it continues to become so pointed, I can't see how our owners can turn round and just keep taking it. That there'll come a line, and I think we might be close to that line, where somebody wanders across it, and then enough is enough. They're leaving themselves open to all sorts of legal challenges. Again, historically, football governing bodies are quite arrogant when it comes to doing things like this. The way the whole of the UEFA reacted to the Bosman ruling, they never thought in a million years they would lose that. They always thought they'd have control of all the players for all time to come, because that's the way it's always been. Well, that's not how the world works. And so I think, and I think if it was also, for example, to say to come to light that there are certain clubs driving this in a pointed fashion at Newcastle United, and that the governing body is playing along with that, then legally they've just driven that T34 into the middle of a massive minefield.
Interesting. A couple of messages come in just before I move to you, Steve, on this from people who have bumped into you in Dortmund. Paul Charlton, great to meet Mitch and Stu Penman in Dortmund. 2 top lads, exactly how I thought they would be. And there was another one from Michael Clark. He says, same as me, Paul. I met Mitch and Stu, lovely gentlemen in Dortmund. Looks like Mitch has fetched back the dreaded flu, the same as me.
Blame Penman, he went out with it and I've come back with it. Do you know
Sharon's caring, lads.
One thing I want to say to this community and people who spend their time to listen to us talk shite on a Friday night, the feedback and the love and the support and the thanks and is still blows me away when it happens. And from being stopped on the doorstep of our hotel, to being shouted at in airports, to being brought over in the square, to being having fingers pointed and waved at in pubs and all beyond, and people wanting to pass their regards on to you guys as well. It's really humbling, and it feels like a real privilege to do shit like this. So thanks everybody. And then after that, I've seen lads I've not seen for the thick end of 20 years this week. People I've been to school with, people I've known for years and years and years. It's been a hell of a trip, and as ever, it's the fans that make it. And it was a really, really good 3 days. Shame about the result, but I'm sure we'll come on to talk about that later. But genuinely, the feedback from the NUFC Matters community is touching and humbling and delightful in every way possible. Thanks, everyone.
Big thanks to Roadblock and Ray Borough for their donations as well. Every little counts towards the inevitable Christmas drink that we'll all be having together. So thanks for the donations. Steve, this is just another sly move by the Premier League, but this time it's blatant. It's in front of everybody. We can all see it, and even Eddie Howe knows that. I
don't know how the powers that be in the Premier League, not the clubs themselves who we know run it, but the people that they've put into to run on the league itself, the executive board, etc., and the legal people. I'm amazed I haven't picked up on yet at how this is a restriction of trade. And not only a restriction of trade in terms of Newcastle United, but a restriction of trade in terms of the players. We could end up with another Bosman here. Shall we call it a Neves? Because that's what it could potentially be. You've got a player potentially, let's use Neves as the example over in Saudi Arabia. If he suddenly wants to come on loan somewhere and a club wants to come in for him, and yet the other 20 or 19 clubs in the league say, no, you can't go there. Whoa, how's he going to handle it? Is he going to get a legal team involved? Is he going to do what happened to UEFA under Bosman? And he's going to go to the authorities and say, I wanted to go there. These 19 clubs are now stopping me from going and working back in the UK, back in England for a club that wants me. That could be huge, and that's just off the top of your head. Mitch mentioned a few clubs there. Let's talk about Man United, who over the years lent 29 players to one club in Europe, Royal Antwerp. 29 players. Let's talk about Chelsea, who at one point in the 21-22 season, I think, or the 2019-2020 and 2020-21, had 41 players out on loan in Europe and in England. So maybe that's an area that now needs to be looked at, because that restricted other clubs from having those players potentially. There's all sorts of things you could do, but the whole top and bottom of it is, this is, as Mitch said, blatant. This is now out in the open. And if I was Newcastle United, I would be going and saying, right, okay, before we have any vote on this, guys, I want to see all the emails from every club on this topic. I want to see every email. I want access to every email that has come into the Premier League. I want to hear of every dialogue that's been from these on that topic. Because if there's any sign of collusion, any sign of these clubs have been talking to each other, then straight away they're classed as a cartel because they're ganging up on somebody else within the group. And at that point, it's all bets off. So I'm sure Newcastle United will have a legal team. I know there's a one down in Bishop Auckland area down in Durham who I'm sure could drag a legal team up very, very quickly. But that's another story. But I'm sure Newcastle United are going to go and they're not going to take this lying down, because there reaches a point where you go, you know what? Okay, you're going to do that to us. I tell you what, we'll do? We'll challenge you on your financial fair play. And what we'll do is we'll get PIF to lend Newcastle United £1 billion. And we'll stick £1 billion in as a loan. And it's exactly the same as the loan that you allowed Abramovich to do at £500,000 a week and up to £1 million a week at one point. And we'll just do exactly the same, but we're going to lump $1 billion in, and we'll let Newcastle United operate that way instead, and see how you feel. Because and by the way, we'll not be buying clubs from the Premier League. We'll be buying clubs from overseas, and we'll be making the overseas clubs, the clubs in Germany and the clubs in Spain and the clubs in Italy, we'll be making them stronger because the money will be going out to their leagues, to their clubs, for their clubs to get stronger. There's all sorts of things you could do, but it's just blatant at the moment. You know, I'm just flabbergasted, absolutely flabbergasted that as Mitch said, it's so out in the open now.
Lots of people talking about the adverts. The good news is that I've had an email today that I've had an email to say that the experiment or whatever it is they're doing finishes on the 23rd of November. So that's 13 days, 2 weeks more of these blasted adverts. Of course, we don't see them because we're doing the show. But yeah, interrupted by a dog advert. Keith Patterson would have found that funny. George, thoughts on this latest attempt of skullduggery against Newcastle United?
Well, it's and the lads are right. It's blatant this time. They can't get away with saying no, it's not Newcastle United, because it clearly is. I mean, didn't Sky, was it today or yesterday, said it was to solve the Newcastle problem? Well, how more blatant could it be than that? A scenario that Neil and Steve have gone through interests me as a former magistrate, and that is if it's Chairman X and Chairman Y have emailed or telephoned the Premier League and talked to the officials, and they've cobbled together something which they think is applicable to this situation. In legal terms, they call that conspiracy. And that isn't just a commercial thing, it's a criminal thing. So they're playing with fire. And if you're going to just think about it. We got owners who took on what everybody said was an intractable problem. Golf was dead. Golf would never be the same again. 2 weeks with Amanda and Meandad, and it was solved. And do you think people like that are going to sit and let the idiots at the Premier League run roughshod over? Not a chance. So I think they're keeping their powder dry because they know they're thinking about when and how to strike best to get the most of it for our club and to get the most of it for football. Because this isn't, it looks like it's just Newcastle at the moment. But as the lads have pointed out, there's so many other clubs who could easily be dragged into this kicking and screaming and don't realise it's them. The Crystal Palace situation with these, Simon Jordan sits and gobs about everybody else. Never hear a whisper about these mythical owners who have so much to do with Crystal Palace, and yet, to all intents and purposes, even their own fans don't know who they are. So that, yeah, I think our owners will be taking note, and they'll be keeping their powder dry. And when they want to strike, by goodness, I wouldn't like to be at the end of the strike, because, as I say, look what Live Golf did, and that was the end of golf. Well, it took PIF and Amanda and me and Dad 2 weeks to sort out an intractable problem. It'll take them a lot less to sort out people like Masters and his cuts, his hoodwinkers at the Premier League. It just is, yeah. And then people are saying on the bottom it's anti-competition and anti-this. It is, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think that if they're not careful, it could suddenly become not a commercial thing, but a criminal thing, and that Masters and his crew could be looking at a charge of conspiracy.
Interesting stuff. As always, half an hour in, 427 watching. We'll never take that for granted. Thanks very much for your support tonight. And as we've got an abundance of them, I'm going to go with Tweet of the Week first. Thanks to everybody for sending them in. Jimmy Wilson has sent a lot. Ian Edgar, Jimmy, Zara, you name it. You've sent them. And we'll start with a few of the cartoon ones. Rob Vasey, thanks for this. Lie to me, Pinocchio. Lie to me, she says. Not sure what she's doing there. Tottenham will win the Premiership. Mum, what did you want? A daughter or a son? I wanted a back rub, says Mum. Here is Bona performing the hind lick maneuver.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Sometimes men make the strangest requests, says Paul.
Oh, dear me.
Yep. Shaving a beaver. Me at 3 a.m. imagining how I would do CPR in a giraffe instead of sleeping. Thanks, Zara. And what position is this? It's called the UK taxpayer. And wow, just how far did the clocks go back? Says Ian. Out now, Rolling Stones #1 album, a new Beatles single. Very clever. Chris was invited to dinner. I bet he's getting his face. I bet his face is stuffed. That's not exactly his face. And why do all fairy tales begin with once upon a time? No, many of them begin with, if I'm elected, I promise.
That's good.
Yes, that's a nice one.
Man United having a bit of a hard time. Man United watching their team play. Man United fans watching their team play. Come on, do something.
Yeah.
And this could have applied to Newcastle as well. Ref, can we have a new ball? What's wrong with the new one? Man City are playing with that one. Classic. And Manchester United players have all been banned from owning dogs as they're incapable of holding onto a lead.
Very good.
Paddy Power as well. Fergie's right. Your fans are saying the Newcastle fans, but the Man United fans refuse to be provoked and maintain their dignified silence. And these clubs trying to stop us all want a bit of oil money, don't they? Please, sir, I want some oil money. And the Stereophonics announced that they're playing Old Trafford in December. I might put a fiver on them to win. And my mate's stutter is so bad, by the time he told us his nana had died, we were all singing Hey Jude. I hate my job. All I do is crush cans all day. It's just so depressing.
Dear me.
And Rachel's got 16 chocolate bars. Tracy takes 4 from her and asks for the remaining quarter. What would she end up with? A slap. The teacher put no, not the answer I'm looking for. And a toilet tweet from Stephen Kennedy.
Look at that.
Oh, dear me.
I think we might all struggle using that one. And Paul, this is a great one. He says, if you see anything more than a closed eye, it means you're in the right group here and you're welcome.
Dear me.
Well, like the vehicle picks, Muff Wash. Brilliant. And to the man who owns this van, says Andy, he's a legend. Product placement, very important. This is when marketing goes wrong.
Definitely.
And I love this. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to tell her that I'm not a painter. Thanks to Keith Patterson for that one.
Well, I suggested he tried finger painting, but that didn't go down very well.
Sorry for this post. Very good. Very good. We've had similar before. And after sex selfies are now getting out of hand.
Oh, dear me.
Very good. Couple of signed ones now, lads. Lick my nuts from Jimmy. These places, who names them? And if you're looking for a sign to drink tonight, this is it. Wow. No one said anything. They just built this slide.
Oh,
dear
me.
And why isn't the climate crisis affecting you? Asks the woman. We don't have a TV, says the man.
Very good.
Mars bars up the arse champ branded a cheat for using a small multi-pack once. And be careful today, folks. It's windy enough to blow a Macamuffy's sister. Thanks, Michael.
Dear me.
And McDonald's making the filling for their apple pies in the 80s.
Definitely.
Newly released pick. We seem to be getting a few of these as well. Stand with Gaza. It's cheers, pet, says Paul. Unbelievable. I'm getting sent that in different formats every day. Now we're married, you can get rid of your Newcastle United tops. You're starting to sound like my ex-wife. I didn't know you were married before. I wasn't. Why did I read this wrong? Says Toon Loon. Very good. And Jesus Christ was originally going to be named Gary until Mary stubbed her toe. Little known fact: before the crowbar was invented, crows simply drank at home.
Oh dear.
And when you invite your lactose intolerant mates over for a milkshake, couple of singing ones. You've done nothing to help with this meal, Herman. I did the mash. I did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
I noticed George always likes to jump in with the song as well, like, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Does like a sing song. Here's another one. Name that song, George.
Oh.
Major Tom to ground control.
Ground control
This
to
one,
Major
Major
Tom.
Tom, I got it the wrong way round, eh?
You did, yeah. And arrived home last night to find a pretty young woman grouting the bathroom wall singing, "It's a heartache, nothing but a fool's
Well, it's only
game."
fool's game.
But I thought to myself, she's a
I
Bonnie
thought
Tyler.
myself, she's dear me.
George is trying to sing the punchline. When is Christmas, says Gary Thompson. In December.
Wow.
Very good. And thought I spotted the first English superhero earlier. I saw a Scouser in Liverpool running down the road wearing a cape. It turned out that he just hadn't paid for his haircut. And this one, it's another sign. Scarborough Hospital, main entrance, accidents, outpatients, cemetery, crematorium.
Oh, dear me.
Oh, dear me. Oh, that's a classic.
The one-stop shop.
It is, yeah.
Definitely.
We raved in the 90s, posted this one, the EGs.
Oh,
And please ensure that copies of My Daddy is a Giant are not placed at the front of the book box. And a little imagination with olives, noodles, and mozzarella, and you're no longer allowed to cook the dinner. And lovely to see kids supporting local rugby without a cell phone in their hand. That's excellent, that.
Brilliant,
isn't
that.
it? Really good. And this one from Dunnell. The BBC News has just reported that the man who first introduced men and women playing tennis together in a foursome has died. Rest in peace, Mick Stubbles.
Oh.
Another name one. There's no such thing as a perfect name for a firefighter. Lieutenant Les McBurney. And I spent 5 minutes trying to figure out who Tom is and what his onion picking skills have to do with my sandwich. Must let Tom pick onion.
Very good.
Very good, yeah. Bad place to stand here, says Jimmy. 1 hour free. Coming down towards the top 10 now. And this one, Richard Keys, got into a bit of a cyber battle. I didn't realize Gabby Agbonglahor was on the radio. His broadcasting career is obviously insignificant as his playing career, described to me today by a Villa staff member as the most unprofessional he'd ever worked with. Appearances 351, goals 76. Is he still at Watford? Gabby replied, speaking of insignificance, after being fired for sexism and getting your wife mixed up with your daughter's best friend, I also wasn't aware they'd let you back on air, but keep using my name to stay relevant, hairy hands. Brilliant. A previously unseen Ellis Lowry titled Old Trafford 65 Minutes was released after the Newcastle Carabao Cup game.
Brilliant.
And, oh yeah, I'll keep that one for the lookalikes. My car's making a terrible noise. Try taking out the Taylor Swift CD. And we are gathered here today to say a sad goodbye to Manchester United season. Eddie Howe doing the service there. And do not enter here in English, Spanish, entero somewhere else. Excellent, good stuff. And the last few. VAR, we often wonder who does it. Here he is. And my mate's just checked into a holiday cottage in Wooler, and this is the loo roll.
Love it. Brilliant.
I do like to ask you whether you would try these different flavors of crisps, lad. What about these sweet and spiced Christmas pudding flavored crisps?
I know. I
Yeah.
saw them in the shops yesterday. When was it? Last Saturday.
Fancy them? Anybody?
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
Well,
George
me,
would try them.
I'm a
I would try.
greedy little duck.
We-
I'll have out.
We've got some bizarre flavours out. I don't know if you've got KFC flavour crisps at home at the minute.
No.
No, we've got KFC flavour over here, and we've got loads of different like Indian curries and mango chutney and stuff like that.
Oh, well.
Oh well, okay. But whatever floats your boat. I got a Grealish hairdo. This guy said he was drowning in women. Now the bloke's had a trim, and I'm back to masturbating. So there we go. Thank you for that. Another interesting news article that we're being sent. I'm not sure why I was sent this, but I was.
Dear me.
Wasn't even sent as a lookalike. I've got no idea why they sent us that. I don't mean to brag, but mine was free. Anxiety disorders, now only $45. Cheers, Jimmy. And fun fact, the majority of archaeologists are women due to their natural ability to dig up the past.
Oh,
And Stephen sent us this one. Spread the news. We have the meat. He went, bad taste. Who wants mayo on their food?
Oh,
Wow.
dear me.
Behind every angry
Dear,
woman
dear
stands a
me.
man who has absolutely no idea what he did wrong. And Morrison's are great these days. A blowjob stool available now in all good Morrison stores. And Asherton biscuits advert here. Herb Nerbs.
Herb nerves.
And the top three. So what brings you in today? I've got a terrible fear of tsunamis. How bad is it? Well, it comes in waves.
Oh.
Number two. Hey, it's your Uber driver. I'm inside. You mean outside? Unfortunately, no.
Dear me.
And the winner this week, one of my favorite ever reviews, Iceland Classic All Day Breakfast. The review was this from Bradley Cox. Tastes simply horrible. If I was starving and had to pick between eating this and eating my own arms, then I would be no good in a Mexican wave. Keep them coming. I love your tweets. We'll have more next week. Okay, we'll go for a double-barreled question, George, this time. Chris says, for the panel, do you see us doing extra business in the January window due to the horrendous injury pile-up? And Tom Dixon says, would you bring Yankuba Minte back in January? So,
Well,
this injury crisis isn't getting any better, is it? So what's your thoughts?
well, the second one's a non-question because we can't get Mintech back.
Apparently we can. Apparently we can.
Right.
Eddie Howe said he's going to look at it in the press conference today. He said, we can bring him back in January if we want. We'll assess all of our loans over the coming months. And, you know, we may bring him back, but at the moment he's injured.
Unfortunately, he's injured, aye.
I was just going to say, we're a scenario. We're looking to support our strikers who are already injured with somebody that's injured. Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, we will do business. I can't see Eddie Howe letting the situation stagnate to the point where it starts to affect the second part of the season. The bit of the season that matters, I think most of our players will probably be back fit, but that doesn't matter. It would be nice to have one or two extra pairs of legs to call on. For example, we've lost Tonali, not just for a while, but for the whole of the season. So that situation needs to be looked at. And one or two others who are getting injured a lot, like Wilson, like Isaac, we need to be thinking how we cover them as well so that they get a rest more often. So yes, I do see we're doing business. If that lad is fit and available to come back and the club thinks they can use him, then by all means, because the little I've seen on television, he looks really hot in a trot. There's no doubt about that. And I wouldn't mind him pulling a black and white shirt on if he can do for us what he's been doing over there. So, yeah, short answer to a double-barreled question is yes, we'll do business. I'm certain of that. Where we need to do business, well, that trust in Eddie is what we say on here, and I still would trust in Eddie for that. But there's obvious places like the strikers that are, every week having to be rested or having to be treated with kid gloves, and we've got the Tonali situation. One or two of the midfielders who we've been using very hard could maybe do with an extra pair of legs as well. Apart from that, I think we're sound as a pound, because quite a few of ours will come back before the meat end of the season.
Okay, Mitch, we're going to have to do some business. I mean, Tonali's out till August. We have got a horrendous injury list, but by the time we get through to January, you would imagine most will be back and available, for selection. But the Minte one's interesting. He has done quite well on loan so far, but he's still just a kid.
Yeah. It probably depends on how well Barnes comes back. And Murphy's now to the new year, having had to have shoulder surgery on his shoulder. I still think the main driver for business will be Tonali's situation. That, I think, is the main driver for any business. But I think it's patently obvious another body up front would be more than useful right now. Does Minte slot into that option? Probably not. He's not a central striker. He's a wide player. If they think it's the right move for him to develop as a player to hurry his introduction to our first team squad, then yeah, all for it. Because he has looked quality in the bits I've seen of him. But it is limited. And again, it's always on. Everybody can look great on YouTube. I'm quite sure I could. But, at the end of the day, it's more about always seeing the best out of that player at this stage in his career for his development. Do we stick with the plan and look at other solutions? But my feeling is the driver for business is the situation with Tonali, and then really we do look painfully thin in the central striking role, and I would be amazed if we don't try and do some sort of business there.
Steve?
Agree, absolutely. That main striker, we've got two at the that seem to be made of glass. So, and we're having to wrap them in cotton wool to protect them when one's out, protect the other. So that there is definitely a need for that area to be strengthened. We said it at the start of the season. We're surprised they didn't bring in a third striker anyway. Mitch is right. And the good thing about if there is anything positive or good out of the Tonali situation, it's the fact that he's out of the squad and you can bring someone in without upsetting the balance. Yeah. He can slot straight in as number 25 in a 25-man squad. It's just disappointing that we haven't got anyone in the under 21s in terms of a striker, banging the goals in that you could look at. You look back over the years, various names used to get bandied about of youngsters who were supposed to be great strikers who never quite made it. Whether they didn't quite make it because they never got the opportunity or what, I don't know. Perhaps there is someone there who just needs the opportunity, but we're not reading about him in the Chronicle or the Shields Gazette or Newcastle World, so that would tell you that there probably isn't anyone there. I haven't seen anyone on the times when I've watched the under 21s or 19s this season that would give me any indication that there's somebody there that could slot in. Unlike Dortmund, who anyone who watched the Dortmund under 19 games, they had one particular young lad who you thought, you know what, he looked special. He looked the sort of youngster who could slot in if called upon at a young age. So we definitely do need to do something. I think it would be disappointing. I think if we didn't do anything at all in the window, because it would be really an opportunity lost. I saw somebody there say, do we now concentrate on the Carabao Cup because our Champions League aspirations are probably gone? I don't think they are gone. And B, you've also got to remember that the UEFA Cup, if you drop into that third slot, which is something to fight up, gives you an automatic entry into the Champions League if you win it. So, there's an awful lot to play for. But you just look at our list of games that we've got leading up to when we play Man City in the middle of January. It's literally a game every 3 to 4 days, all the way through after the international break, all the way through December and January. So it's going to be a long, hard slog with the players that we've got. And we talked right at the very start about how Eddie is managing in terms of his coaching, but more importantly, that his ability as a manager. And it's going to be really, really tested over the next 10, 12 games, just because of what he's got available to him and how he can shuffle the pack, how he can keep players fresh. I suppose some would say that Bruno went out and particularly got booked last weekend, because this is probably, of all the games coming up, the one game that you feel as though you could go without him. But no, let's see. We can all speculate on transfer windows, but we all think we know where we need strengthened. I suppose only Eddie really does. And I'm sure those conversations are happening right now. Probably sitting on the plane on the way down to Bournemouth, and he's probably got somebody sitting next to him, and he's probably giving it in their ear. If he's not, then Jason Tyndall will.
I'm just looking at the injuries. I mean, unprecedented, really, with the suspension of Bruno as well. We're missing 10 key players, George. I actually had to check Malcolm last night. I don't often disagree with Malcolm, but I disagreed with him last night because he was trying to insist that the injuries were all because of the training that Eddie puts the players through, the high intensity press and all of that. And we agreed to disagree on it. But when you go through the injuries, a lot of them have been freak injuries. I mean, Dan Burn, went up for a header, landed badly on his back, and ultimately damaged his spine. I'm
sorry, Steve, I'll correct you there. Kai Havertz made a back for him and stuck him on his arse.
Well, there we go. Yeah,
another thing that Kai Havertz should have been pulled up for.
Well,
sorry.
No. Well, listen,
right.
Mitch, we'll go with you. We'll go with you first. Listen, the situation with a lot of the players, though, it's a freak injury with Harvey Barnes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A complete freak injury. From our perspective, it's not down to training. I think this is another media narrative. I think it's a narrative that the media are spinning to try and cause unrest in the Newcastle United camp. Oh, well, it's all Eddie Howe's fault. You know what I mean? Because they can see how good a mix Eddie Howe is with Newcastle. They can see it's a good fit. It's just another attempt to try and stir things, I think. And, sadly, I think Malcolm fell for it hook, line and sinker.
I've got to ask Gary, does he know anybody from the Philippines? Because that's their solution to everything.
Yeah.
Even tonight, I was having a pint with Stu, and a couple of the girls were like, "Oh, Mitch, I'll bring you some Vicks and we can rub it on your feet and rub it on your chest." I'm thinking, good God, it's the solution for everything. Put some Vicks on it. It'll be fine.
Keep your socks on.
Yeah, look at if you look at the injuries in the suspensions, Tonali, utterly unprecedented. Bruno was always going to happen. Has he picked his moment? He charged around like an idiot for about 5 minutes in that Arsenal game, and I suspect he knew what he was doing. Harvey Barnes, Liz Frank injury.
He didn't get sent off.
Liz Frank injury are really rare with footballers. Are very common in rugby players and American footballers because the feet get twisted more. But in a footballer, very, very unusual, very rare injury for a footballer to get. Dislocated shoulder from Murphy. Thought he was fit enough to recover. He trained on it, and then it popped again. And the minute that goes, it needs surgery. It's exactly what happened to Stephen Taylor. And so he needs now to strengthen that and build everything back up. Burn, yeah. I mean, for me, Havertz made a back for him and pulled him down. He knew what he was doing. Very unlucky to crack bones in your spine. Stress fractures in back with Anderson. Now that's an interesting one because a lot of younger players develop injuries like this because they're still growing. And so, again, unlucky, very, very unlucky. Matt Targett's hamstring injury, again, literally, he described it himself in his tweet after his surgery, freak injury. I think Eddie Howe must think at the minute, if he fell in a barrel of tits, he would come out something in his thumb. You know, there's just no look at all there. And I think we'll have to kind of just. I think he's handling it very, very well. It's not like the time in the past when we've had injury crises that it was patently to do with problems on the training pitch, particularly when Souness was the manager, because they were all hamstring strains, quad strains. They were all niggly, stupid, hasn't warmed up properly, hasn't warmed down properly, hasn't stretched properly type muscular injuries. You know, Wilson, we know, is prone to muscle injuries. And the minute he feels anything, they just pull him out of it. Isaac seems to be similar. That if it's not groin, it's thigh. That if he feels something there, they've got to pull him out of the firing line because it needs to recover properly before they put him back in again. You know, we can go on and on and on. And Guy Paul's making a really good point there in terms of we were just as hard trained last year. We just played just as hard last year. Some of these injuries are genuinely unlucky, freak, and so we'll get through it. But I think we're coping with it with a very high degree of dignity. And for me, I think we're coping far better than people realise, and it doesn't hurt the mentality thing. You know, it's a thing we can use to get the wagons around and create a little bit of a siege mentality. Is the world against me? Right, let's show them what we've got. And I think in there as well, there's been a little bit of clever decisions. Would we rather lose Wilson for 2 games or lose him for 6 months? Would we rather lose Isaac for 4 games or lose him until February? I think I know everybody knows what the answers are, that different players need different management strategies for their injuries. And so I don't think we're missing a trick there, but I do think come the turn of the year, I suspect we might get some better rubber the green.
Okay, Steve, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, and it's just it's the sheer volume of injuries that have occurred all at the same time. Some people might put it down to the schedule that we've had. I think that the few weeks that we've had of really heavy pitches, because they are heavy. You know, we had an awful lot of rain. I think that you look at Isak. He went out and down in the pouring rain after only 15 minutes. A very, very fast pitch against Dortmund. That might have had an impact. It might have been a little bit colder than they thought. The other thing with the Champions League game also is the length of time they'll stand around before kickoff. You know, you come out, you're listening to the Champions League music. There's the warm up. There's the stand around to get the photographs taken and all that type of thing. All of those are little things that can affect a player. You know,
also as well, Steve. Do you not think if we go back to where we started the conversation today? If you take what Eddie Howe said about putting Bruno and Wilson on against Man United at face value,
yeah,
and says to them, right, go and give us 30 of your best minutes, and didn't have to bother coming in for training tomorrow and have the day off.
Yep, and you remember it's not that long ago that he said because of the Russia games we weren't getting an opportunity to train. And if you remember, Tonali was all over the place, and he there were spells where he hadn't trained for a fortnight. And obviously because there were issues overseas that he was having to nip back on, which at the time nobody knew of. And Eddie was always he's coming in there doing a little bit of training on a Friday, but you got to remember there's got to be cool down periods. You play on a Tuesday, you're then flying back. You've then got a cool down period. You're suddenly training in the afternoon, or you're doing a cool down in the afternoon. You've got to at somewhere along that line. You've got to give a player a rest break. Then you've got to look to prepare for the Friday game, and then Friday afternoon you're on a plane and you're flying down to Bournemouth, and then what do? Do you train before a match? It's the same. That's why Eddie hasn't had them going out and doing any training when they've gone to Italy or when they've gone to Germany. There hasn't been a training session. The training sessions before they've gone, they haven't waited and trained in the evening, which is a period when they're not used to. Unlike the Continentals, who always love to, let's say, PSG is a perfect example. Wanted to train on St James's Park the night before a game to familiarise themselves and to do various warm-ups and warm-downs and just to be out there kicking a ball. That's Eddie's decided he's not going to do that. And again, that's part of his learning curve and it's part of his philosophy. And it's just a change. So there are other players, and you just look at the list there: Longstaff, Gordon, Bruno, Trippier. These guys are playing virtually every game. Bruno's the sort of player that even when he's had the opportunity to substitute him, he hasn't taken him off unless it's been because he's in a complete rage and it looks like he's going to get sent off. And then you look at Trippier. Trippier came from Spain, and it was only here for a couple of weeks, and then he did an injury that we'd never heard of since 2010 when Rooney did it, and ended up with a metatarsal injury. I thought metatarsals had been done away with because they suddenly become very, very rare because maybe it's the change of boots, but Trippier developed that but we all know how, because of a tackle that was put in. So it's a physical game. We could be without Longstaff because of that ridiculous tackle by Havertz. And we're just lucky that he managed to just lift himself off the ground just at that moment in time. And I must say, I was really annoyed to hear certain pundits saying that they thought that Longstaff saw the tackle coming and purposely held back to be hit, but lifted his leg in such a way. It was a dive, 2-footed tackle. The lad's lucky not to be on crutches like his brother was last season, Absolutely
independent commission, unanimous decision, should have been a red card.
Exactly. But we've had a week of it, and they all said, every pundit going bar maybe two thought that he should have been all the decisions were the wrong decisions. Fascinating, isn't it?
George, thoughts on this before we go to the ads?
Well, what I find fascinating is about the press guys picking up this up and trying to turn it into something against Newcastle United. Where were they when Bruce was running the bloody squad round my street? All of them, and bloody Dwight Gale was standing hoying his guts up at the end of my street because he was having to run 3 miles or something. No, it's even Botman's injury, unlucky. I mean, who would have thought that by simple jumping and coming down with your foot in the wrong way would cause an injury like that? Well, it does, but it's bad luck. It's nothing to do with Howe's training methods or anything like that. So no, it's clickbait for those that wanted to be and have an axe to grind against Newcastle United. But it isn't for me. I must say that I've never seen a squad in such a short space of time develop physically and mentally in such a short space. I mean, some of these kids came back last summer with shoulders they hadn't had before, with an extra 10 yards in that sprint. It just incredible. So whatever they're doing, if they're giving them 3 with the mix instead of 2, great, keep doing it, lads, because it's fine. The injuries, they're sad, but it's modern football as well. Lots of games, high intensity games, but I don't think it's training methods that's done it. We just haven't had the rub of the green, and I think, as Neil said, by the turn of the year, we'll get the rub of the green, and people will pay for it.
Yep. Okay. As always, we are halfway through the show, so it is time for the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find out more about them from their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to United Group Travel, UK coach holiday firm based in Morpeth. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. They're now taking bookings for 2024. You can call 01670 632 460, 0791 666 4174, or 07957 141 654. or go to the website unitedgrouptravel.com. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it. It does us a big favour. Click share to share to your other social media and let people know about NUFC Matters. We're also a podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to help the show financially, you can take out a £25 one-off membership. You get a scarf, a pen, a cup, and a membership card. How do you get it? Go to nufcmatters.com, look for membership. If you've got a smartphone, then put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight to that section on the website. We also support the food bank on this channel. You can donate to the food bank today by going to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. We do support events on this channel as well. If you've got an event, please send it in and we'll promote it. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are doing a Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle event, the Class of 84, 25th of January 2024. Book now by calling 0844 249 1000. And the Tyneside Irish Centre, they're doing an event with Frank Clark and John Gibson on Thursday, December the 7th. You can get tickets from nufcmatters.com and they are priced at £15. There's also some tickets available on Groupon. Don't forget, you can catch me 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, with Rye, Dave, and Daz on the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show, 7 till 9. And you can catch us on the Red, the Toon, and the Cat, and on Toon Radio's website. WhatsApp us on the day 0330 043 2002, the perfect way to start your day.
Benny, I would just ignore social media. He says, amazed to see fans on social media criticising Eddie's team selection on Tuesday. Has he not built up enough trust with entire fan base at this point? Do what I do. Keep off social media. Chantel says, can you lads talk about Arsenal crying still? Independent panel voted the goal was legit against Arsenal. Bruno inconclusive if it was a red. Havertz's decision was a mistake. The panel voted it a red. The worst decision went in Arsenal's favour, yet they are still crying. George, we'll go back to that game. Arsenal really have just let themselves down, from the manager down to the supporters. I mean, whinging on about this, pretending to be in Dortmund and cheering them on, congratulating Dortmund on a great result. I mean, does it get any more petty, George? It's pathetic.
No, it doesn't. And I find it so sad for it to be a club like Arsenal. I think on one of the shows the other night, I said, they used to be called, when I was a kid, the Arsenal. It wasn't Arsenal. You always had to say the Arsenal. And they said it because of the respect they had. Both on and off the field, they were highly regarded. What Arsenal did, the rest followed. Down to a guy called Herbert Chapman, who was a great coach, great footballer, but a gentleman as well, and played his sport the same way as he led his life. So they were the Arsenal. And if they did it, everybody else wanted to do it, and they were miles ahead. You know, and everybody talked about the marble halls in the entrance to Highbury. They were just a different club. Well, they're a different club again. They're a club of bloody whingers now, and Herbert Chapman will be turning in his grave, and so will Ted Drake and all the other greats that managed them and played for them, because what they've turned into. I'm amazed that Arteta hasn't been charged with something after that outburst of his. It was outrageous what he was saying. He was saying in no roundabout terms that he thought that the VAR guys at Stockley Park were corrupt. And he went on and on and on. And then the club put that great statement out. Great for who? It was just depressing reading it, that a club should stoop to that level. What they should do is look across the North London at their rivals manager, the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, who had a terrible night. And how did he handle it? With dignity. Sure, pride and dignity that sooner or later, boys, the referee's got to be right, and left it at that. He could have whinged for a fortnight, for a year, on the things that happened in that match for Tottenham. but he didn't. He chose to take it as a man, as a gentleman as well. His stock went up for me, 100% no bother after that game. But Arteta, he's been like that all the time. He gets away with all this stupid running up and down the line, despite the fact that they've told him he shouldn't. He's still doing it. What about the Arsenal players when they were making the VAR decision? All 11 were around the referee. Manchester United were fined for a similar thing a year ago, and all 11. He could. Steve said to me, "It looks like he's having a cup of tea with them, didn't you, Steve? He looks like he's got the tea. He's got the teapot out. He's giving them all a bloody cup of tea. That's how close they were. And so for them to argue and argue and argue, the one fact he should argue about is one shot on goal in 90 bloody minutes. You're not going to win the league again doing that, bunny lad. Play some football like you did before, but get a pill for your gob."
Thoughts on this, Mitch? The Arsenal game?
My dad's right with the comparison to Postecoglou. I mean, the German team covering the game on Monday night actually ran out of time at half-time to discuss all the first half incidents that had to cut back to the live football quickly. And he probably was well within his rights to lose his shit, and he didn't. He held and I'm not big on the media loving for him at the minute, but those words were dignified and sensible. Now, an independent commission has found that there were errors in the refereeing in that game, and the error was the Arsenal player should have been sent off, and the goal stood quite correctly. The Premier League are now back in the corner because the words that Mikel Arteta used post-match, frankly, bring the game into disrepute. Mm-hmm. At the very least. Yet, the Premier League seem to have dropped the bait. They're frightened to do anything about it. They seem very, very quiet about it. I'm telling you right now, if Jason Tindall had come out with a rant like that after a game in front of the television camera, he'd be nailed against the wall. They wouldn't even think twice about doing it. What makes Arteta think he's that special that he can get away with that? What makes Arteta that entitled that he thinks he can get away with that? And you know what? Once again, because it involves us, the Premier League look like they're going to let him get away with it. They're toothless. I find it fascinating why he is not already on a charge now. An independent commissioner sat down with the Premier League and said, "Yeah, we've looked at these referee decisions, and you know what? Referee got it done on." I'm happy to wind my neck in. I thought the ball was out myself in real time. I was fully waiting for it to be disallowed, and it wasn't. And you know, in the back of all of it, the one person I've heard making a really sensible point from the Arsenal side was one of the knackers off Arsenal TV, who usually just sits and screams and swears at the telly, who lost his shit at Ben White because Ben White stopped and didn't play at the whistle and just let Willock bring the ball back in and cross it. Mm-hmm. And that's what Arteta should be doing. Should be getting hold of his defence and say, "What the hell were you playing at stopping?" Because the referee didn't blow his whistle. It was play on. And you was all as weak as dishwater. What Gabriel was doing in the centre against Joe Linton. Amazing how he can be pushed and go up in the air at the same time. That's not how it works. I don't think physics works like that. And yet that's what he was trying to make out was happening. That I've all been pushed. Well, if you're being pushed, why is your legs going up? Gravity sort of has to play in that. So yeah, it's fascinating that now everybody seems to have gone quiet on it. Now Arteta has been found out, and found out by an independent panel. Amazing to hear some of the pundits as well. ex-Arsenal defender Martin Keown. I would like to be on that panel. Yeah, you would. And you know what you'd do? You'd give every bloody decision in favour of Arsenal because you've made it so transparent that that's what you want to go and do and sort it for your boys. Because you feel that hard done by, because your idiot little Lego-headed manager has been running up and down the touchline for game after game after game for 2 seasons and talking shit in the media after every game when it doesn't go his own way. Nah. Something has to be done about it, and I challenge the Premier League to do it. I'll not hold my breath.
Steve, this Arsenal story is run and run and run longer than any other, and a lot of people think that Arteta should be hauled across the coals now. I mean, he should have been anyway, but now that the cat's out the bag, if you like, and it's been proved beyond all reasonable doubt, he should face some kind of retrospective action, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I'm amazed it hasn't come yet. They obviously were waiting to find out what the panel would say to give, so that whatever charge they would lay on him would be a lesser charge, perhaps, or they would just sort of, give him a bit of a warning. Now, as Mitch says, they've backed themselves into a hole. You mentioned the Arsenal, the Spurs Chelsea game on Monday. How well was it refereed? 5 disallowed goals. 2 sendings off. Michael Oliver held it well, did really well. Meanwhile, Arteta shouting and bawling about referees and the standard of refereeing. Arsenal play Burnley tomorrow. Michael Oliver's refereeing that game. Wouldn't it be funny if he refereed it in the same way, which he will? But if the decisions go Arsenal against Arsenal, how's Arteta going to handle that? Then you've got it. I mean, you talk about referees. The other ridiculous situation is that 2 weeks ago, Anthony Taylor was thrown to the wolves, wasn't he, as a referee, and was pushed back down into the Championship. This weekend, he's back refereeing Chelsea v Man City, the biggest game of the day. So the whole PGMOL needs questioning as well. Is everything.
Can you explain that to me, Steve? That a referee does something in the Premier League that's wrong.
Yeah.
So he gets sent to another division.
Yeah. What have the other division done to deserve that?
It's all right. You can be shit there, just don't be shit here.
Exactly.
And I had a chat with a couple of me red and white mates. They were saying, "Hey, you better not be refereeing us this weekend because he's bloody hopeless." Exactly. And you're like, well, yeah, that's how it seems to work. Is you do something stupid, and you get sent to a lower division because it doesn't really matter that much. Yeah. It baffles me at all. Why don't they just pull him for a week? Give him a week off. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I just don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, there was another situation, wasn't there, in the women's league, the WSL at the weekend, where I think it was Arsenal played Man City, and it turns out that one of the managers has come out and had a go at the other manager because he felt as though that he was insulting to the fourth official. And we're now getting there's now a little battle.
Words like bullying being used. Yes,
exactly. I mean, you've bullied the fourth official. If that was the case, then if bullying is now going to be something that you can level at a manager to a fourth official, God, hey, the authorities are gonna struggle to have referees soon. Because they're going to have to. This referees are going to be scattered everywhere. There's going to have to be extra seats put in grounds to have all the coaching staff and the managers somewhere to sit. Maybe that's what they need to do. Maybe they need to get rid of the dugouts altogether and just have the substitutes sitting there and have them behind a wire fence as well to stop them from coming on. It's it's getting ridiculous.
Put seatbelts in the chairs.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's see what happens at the weekend. But let's see what the Premier League disciplinary committee really come up with. I suspect they've forgotten about it now. I think at one point, there was even an article over the weekend that said that there was only so many days that are allowed before you can then charge a manager, and maybe it's time bonded and maybe it's out. Who knows?
One last old chestnut for the Arsenal game. Not a single throw in was legal in that match. And by the time the game finished, everybody around me was shouting, "Foul throw, weren't they, Steve? Foul throw." Foul throw. Yeah, terrible. Really, really was. You know, and they talk about all the fancy things in football. It's all the basics that worry me that are disappearing. Things like throw-ins and free kicks, and whether it's indirect or direct, they just don't seem to care now. But yeah, the half the by 1892 were shouting foul throw by the end of the match.
Plenty of comments coming in. Thanks for all of them. We're getting our way through the questions. But as always, we have a lot to get through on Friday night. Here is Toon Lookalike. Okay, a few to get through tonight, so we will whiz through them. Steve's chosen a perfect opportunity to get away. Lookalike Adam P is a young Steve Wraith. That was brilliant, by the way, Gav. That was sent to me when I was on my week off. But yes, Adam P went as Walter White, and certainly had the look of Steve Wraith, which is great. I posted this photograph, and Albert gave it his usual trickery. Patu and Hasty, very generous, mate. That was me and Sir Bobby originally, but thanks for that. And Joel Bland had put up a post about Marcel Bout. I got inundated with people saying, "Is that Steve Hasty?" Which you would expect. And of course, there it is. Breaking Bad and Broken and Bad, and a couple of lookalikes, I guess, for me as well, Spenny, to boot. So thank you for that. Again, this one was sent in. Lots of people seeing that significance. As soon as the goatee beard comes back, I'm afraid that's what does it. 100% Marks. Here's one for lookalikes: Abu Dhabi sport pundit and Gary the Rat Neville.
Looks more like Berbatov, actually.
I'm not sure where he's got this nickname from as well. Gary the Rat. I've never heard him called that. Isaac and Trippier, two players in the Saudi team. That's uncanny, isn't it?
That's when you order them off Wish.
When you order them off Wish, yeah. KFC, the Colonel walking past there.
Very
excellent. We've had this one a few times, I think. One for lookalike says Gary, Action Man and Arteta. Yep, definitely had that one submitted before. Somebody suggesting in this photograph that I look like Phil Collins. Must have been something in the air that night, I think. And Jimmy Moore sent us this one. Toon lookalike, they grow up so fast. Chucky and Chucky's owner and Ed Sheeran, yeah. Very, very, very good. Very,
Taylor
very
Swift.
good. Taylor Swift, yeah. Toon lookalike, Clippity Clop and one of the banana splits.
Yep.
Not the winner, though. Lots of people thought that might have won this week. Lookalike, Rod Stewart and Meatloaf.
Oh, God.
When animals mock footballers, this one is just a load of lookalikes, all in a row there, which I was sent as well, which is very good. Yeah, there's a few dogs in there, a couple of monkeys, and a squirrel, I think.
But, at the bottom.
Yeah, thanks to Feigen for this one. When you think of this as a celebrity, who would it be? Well, Andrew Harbert says Hasty is looking pretty.
I'm a bit worried about Andrew.
And got to be a Hasty lookalike. The granddad who ate paint thinking it was yogurt has died, sadly. Rest in peace. But it's a Hasty lookalike. Another one, Neil Skinner, says it's got a distant Dutch relative of Hasty, is it? So lots of people putting you in the same boat, as was Toon Barmy. Steve Hasty's done well for himself, always had an eye for talent.
That's true.
Just ask the missus. And Sutty says Toon lookalike, Terry McDermott and actor Bernard Wrigley.
That's good.
Good. Never had that one before, but that is good. And this one, on a visit to the Lytton Phil Library, I spotted a painting of a founder member, Reverend Edward Moses. I thought he looked like George.
Yeah. I wish I had his money.
Wish he had his money. Jose Mourinho and Timon from our reliable Tom Dixon, who sends us 3 a week. Sergio Ramos and Miley Cyrus. And Olivia Giroud and Ryan. Yep, very good.
Yeah.
Another Hasty one. Rare 70s disco Hasty lookalike from Ray. Thanks, Ray.
Very good, Ray.
and Marty Pello and Craig from the Magpie channel.
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from there.
Yeah.
Not bad. I think Craig would take that, to be fair.
He would, I'd be happy with that.
Marty Pello and Fabian Share.
Oh,
Another
I think
one from
I've heard
100%
of Marty Fellows all of a sudden.
Yeah, a few Marty Pellos. People been dusting down their old vinyls, I think. Ten Hag look-alike. Yes, it could be Keith Patterson as well. Although it's a little bit too close to the bar.
Yeah.
And Lewis Hall and Fred from Scooby-Doo.
Oh, poor Lewis. Oh,
Good one. Good one. And Lionel Richie and Bourbon Freeman.
Oh, dear me.
I was never sure which one to put that in, to be fair. Bill Travis and South African rugby player. Pretty good lead. The winner of this is this one. Gordon Ramsay and Danny DeVito spotted in McDonald's eating a Happy Meal.
I like it. I like
Brilliant,
it.
that. Absolutely brilliant. Keep your looking like he's coming in. We'll have more on the show next. Okay, Newcastle United take on Bournemouth away this coming Saturday, 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports from the Vitality Stadium. And Newcastle, of course, go into the game hoping to extend their 7-game unbeaten run. Team news, well, speaking today, Eddie Howe confirmed that there will be a late decision made over whether Callum Wilson would get to face his old club. He was substituted, of course, at half-time in Dortmund with a hamstring issue. He would join the walking wounded, which includes Dan Burn, Sandro Tonali, who was banned, Sven Botman, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, Elliot Anderson, Matt Targett, Javier Manquillo, Alexander Isak, and of course Bruno, who is serving a 1-match suspension. Botman has been in Holland seeing a knee specialist about his troublesome knee. Isak's back in training with a return later this month penciled in, as is Harvey Barnes. Anderson and Byrne are also due back in December. Murphy early next year. Emil Kraft and Matt Ritchie are the good news. They're both going to be available after being omitted from the United's Champions League game because they're not in the Champions League squad. Sean Longstaff goes into this game one booking away from an automatic 1-match ban. As for Bournemouth, well, Andoni Iraola's side have won just once in 11 Premier League games this season to date. That was a 2-1 home win against Burnley. Referees Chris Kavanagh, that's his second appearance of the season looking after Newcastle's games. The first one was the 1-0 home cup win over Manchester City. And on VAR, it is John Brooks. So, as always, we have Toon Stato to give you a little bit of info on the game.
Hello everyone. Bournemouth away tomorrow after what's been a very hectic week for Newcastle. Winning against Arsenal, losing against Dortmund, before that destroying Man United away from home, and now we finish the cycle with that game tomorrow at the Vitality Stadium. So far we have played 5 games against them there and we haven't lost a single game. 2 wins and 3 draws. Only against Birmingham away we have a better record. There we have 2 wins and 4 draws. Bournemouth on their own have only 1 win in their last 15 games overall in the Premier League when they beat Burnley at home 3 weeks ago. At the same time, they have scored only 9 goals and none of them has come from a set piece, the only team in the Premier League that hasn't scored from a set piece yet. Newcastle are without Bruno Guimaraes. We have not won any of the last 6 games that we have played without Bruno, and 5 of these 6 games have been against opposition in the bottom half of the table. The star for Newcastle lately has been Anthony Gordon with 5 goals in his last 11 games for the club. For Everton, in his previous 65 games in the Premier League, he scored only 7. He also has 4 goal involvement in his last 5 games, in comparison to 4 goal involvement in his previous 32 games in all competitions. A fun stat is that Sinisterra from Bournemouth scored the goal in their defeat against Man City 6-1, and the previous time he scored a goal was in the defeat of Leeds 6-1 by Liverpool last season. So let's hope he scores again in another 6-1 defeat on Saturday. Away the let's see what's happening tomorrow.
And as it's an away trip, we have Scunny Mag.
Hi folks, Paul here with an away day guide for anyone visiting the Vitality Stadium at Bournemouth. People have travelled down there in the past on train. If you get into Bournemouth station, you used to be able to go to the Inferno pub. That's now shut. The second option was to head to Folkestone, which is a local station just one stop out of Bournemouth. If you are going there, there's a really popular pub called The Bell, which most away fans head to. It's just across the road from that station. The postcode is Bravo Hotel 7 6 Alpha X-ray, and your what 3 words is easy event claims. For those of you that are driving in, the club has parking around it. You can access that, or you could before with a matchday ticket. That does fill up fast, so failing that, there is a supermarket complex nearby with a multi-storey car park. You can park up on the roof there. Dead handy for the next two pubs I'm going to tell you about as well, and that's called the Sovereign Centre. Your postcode for that is Bravo Hotel 1 for Sierra X-ray, and your what 3 words for the entrance is wages, bonds, learn. That's about 10-15 minutes from the ground, and as you come out of there, if you head just south onto the main road through Boscombe, you'll find two pubs across the road from each other nearly. One's called Mellow Mellow. They advertise that they have away fans, welcome them, and do cheap drinks. Your postcode is Bravo Hotel 7 6 Alpha Alpha, and your what 3 words is chat work orders. And the other one just across the road was previously called Shark Bites. Some fans that have been before may know that was an old sort of beat up building. They used to have great matchday deals and that. I gave them a ring because it's changed owners and it's been revamped. It's now called Maroy's, and they are still absolutely welcoming away fans. She encouraged me to let everybody know. Your postcode for Maroy's is Bravo Hotel 7 6 Bravo Tango, and your what 3 words is glue gravy proper. So when you're done with the pre-game drinking and singing, head up to the ground. We're on the southeast corner, on the east side. Your what 3 words is post public cherry, which should take you nicely to the away turnstiles. That's it from me. Have a great day.
Yeah, that was rather loud. I've just seen somebody say, bang, there goes my speakers. Paul was in a rush doing that, I think, this week. So, maybe tone it down a little bit, Paul. But smooth, says Jules. There goes my speakers.
A couple of weeks ago, he was too quiet. Yeah, whispering Paul.
Mark Byers says, Scunny Mags, what 3 words this week at Ted Lowe's voice? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay. Thanks for the review as always, Toon Stato and Paul. Look, it's a big game because it's our next game, George. We are hit with injuries and suspensions, but this is a happy hunting ground for Newcastle. We got a 1-1 draw there last year. The question was asked of Eddie Howe today: is the pressure off a little bit because this isn't your first visit back? You've been there, you've experienced the atmosphere as a returning manager. What's your thoughts on this one, George?
Well, straightforward. I would be very disappointed if we don't come away with 3 points. I don't think there'll be a lot of goals because although they did get a tanking off Manchester City, it could be. But my guess is it's a small goal win in our favour. Eddie's got nothing to prove there. He's been and done it. Got the T-shirt and. Was well received. I don't see it being any different tomorrow. And whatever team he puts out, the one thing we're guaranteed is they'll give it a go. We'll get 100% off the whole 11, and he cannot ask for much more than that. So I'm 1 or 2 danger man. I mean, how Solanke's still there, I don't know, because he looks clinical at times in front of goal, but. He seems to like it there, so he's still there. But I'm confident enough we'll have enough in the tank to overturn Bournemouth tomorrow.
Okay, Mitch, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think it's again, it's one of those fixtures where if we put in what we know we can put in, we should be able to get 3 points out of it, no matter what team we put out. They had a real proper dry humping last weekend. Away from home, they've been very poor. At home, they've been a bit of a different beast. They've been harder to break down at home. Irretta's got them playing a very different style of football to what O'Neill had them playing. But because of that, I think that's where it's a strength for them, but it can be their weakness. I think there's weaknesses there to be exploited. I just hope we'll have the bodies and the legs to be able to do that. And we should do. Even with 10 people missing, we should be able to take 3 points at Bournemouth. You know, from an Everton standpoint, there's probably never a better season for them to be docked points because of the teams at the bottom are that poor. And they really are. That's not arrogance. That's just reality. You look at the results, you look at the points. And there is now a growing gap between the bottom 6 and the rest of the Premier League. 100%. And Bournemouth are part of that. I think we should be able to take them. If anybody's in Dubai and they want to find Brooklyn Bar where all the Geordies gather, what 3 words this week are big hairy bollocks. And now the dice. And the dice says Bournemouth 1, Newcastle 2.
Okay, 2-1. What's your prediction, Mitch?
2-0.
2-0. That's what I'm going for. 2-0. George, your prediction?
2-0. That's what I was thinking of.
2-0 for you. Okay, Steve. How important is this game, and what are you expecting tomorrow? Do you think Hall will start? Craig Lee's asking.
There's every possibility he might. You've got to do something midfield to replace Bruno. He might go with a Joe Linton, Willock, and Longstaff midfield 3. He might push Willock further forward and bring Hall in. He might play Hall a little bit further up the pitch. There's lots of things that Eddie Howe has as options, which is good, simply because of the versatility of his squad, the way that he has them playing. And sometimes it's difficult to tell who's playing wide and who's playing in the midfield because they interchange so well. They work so positively with the fullbacks and they support each other. So that's a positive for us, I suppose. Massive positive for Eddie Howe, but that's testament to the way that he's created his squad, built his squad, and the mentality that he has within them, that they all work for each other. That's another area that we probably would have mentioned, but we didn't get a chance to earlier on, Steve. Everything's pointing to a successful Newcastle United, a well-drilled Newcastle United. We saw what he can do with when he has so many injuries and when he makes changes. You just look at the way that they played against Manchester United, another performance like that, and boy, would we be happy. I think that I was going to go for 2-0 as well. Got to remember, Bournemouth are sitting there in third bottom of the league with only 6 points. And as Scunny said, they've only won the 1 game this season, lost 7, drawn 3. We are sitting on 20 points, and we're a far better team. We've got totally different aspirations to the aspirations that they have, and we just look at the way we've played. Okay, we didn't get the rub of the green at times on Tuesday night, but we're playing a very, very good football team. Look at the determination and the workman-like performance we put against Arsenal, and then look at the way we totally dominated with a totally different virtually 11 against Manchester United. Sat back and did them on the break. With the way we played against Manchester United was not what we expected, and it shows again that you can coach from the sidelines and you can get players to perform the way he wants to and perform as per the script that he lays out. So all of these are positives. That's an interesting team that's been put up there, and it that could well be. It's interesting that we put Miley in the midfield ahead of Hall. I thought Hall was unlucky. I thought Hall on Tuesday night got stifled by the early booking, and I think that was the only reason he came off.
I agree.
But again, big learning curve for Hall. So all in all, we're looking at a 2-0 win. You three have said 2-0, and I'll go for 2-0 as well. We might as well all be wrong and find out we'll win 3-0.
Okay, still got 20 minutes of the show left. Here is some music which will damage your speakers as well. day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present. John Whitley, thank you for this one. The day I met this squad of legends was the 92-93 promotion team he met, which the Division 1 champions, which is quite a collection of players and manager. Of course, Keegan there as well, Terry McDermott, Mick Quinn, John Beresford, to name a few. But that's a great photograph. And this one from Patty Adore. Tino, I delivered to most of the players in Darras, Ponteland and Tramwell. This was the day after the away to Manchester United. He was delivering something to Tino Livramento. So thanks for that one. Two great photos there of different eras. If you've got one, send it to me and we will feature it on the show. And it's a big congratulations to Mark Byers, who is the winner of this T-shirt. His football shirt, the Entertainers football shirt, signed by Peter Beardsley. He's got the highest bid of £100 on Twitter. So if you can sort that out with the food bank, Mark, and that shirt will wing its way across to the US of A for you. But well done. You are the proud owner of that shirt now, signed by Peter Beardsley, and Entertainers Grandad collar shirt. Thank you for taking part. We will put another one of those up for grabs this week. And same again, just place your bid underneath the tweet, and we will give it a week because we'll be back next Friday. And hopefully we will have another similar amount raised for the food bank, which we can give them next week. Just a quick one for any music aficionados out there. And the Beatles, you will know, have brought out their last ever single. Now and then, of course, only Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr remain. But just let you know, they are now officially number one. 78,200 combined UK chart units have been sold of this single. That's quite a feat in this day and age. 48,600 physical and download sales were in the first 7 days. This is the biggest 1 week physical sale in almost a decade. The previous record, so that's 38,000. And this is the fastest selling vinyl single of the century so far. 19.4 thousand copies on vinyl. And the Beatles, here's a good one for your quiz questions, are now the act with the longest gap ever between number one singles. And that is 54 years. Thanks to Dave Beanie for sending us that. But congratulations, it's a great song. Certainly has the bottom lip quivering when you listen to it and think of everything to do with the Beatles. Great video as well that Peter Jackson did. But yeah, if you haven't already listened to it, stick it on YouTube once the show finishes. Big fan of that song. So fantastic. Okay, we did get a few more questions in. Alan Thompson. Lads, seriously, with the Champions League finished bar the shouting, will the Chelsea game be top priority in the Carabao, or the Carabao Cup take priority over the Premier League? For me, it's the Premier League, says Alan, who is often known on the fans forum as the miserable one. He's even getting stopped in the street now and being called that, which I find a bit harsh. Are you the depressing one in there on the fans forum? I said this on an earlier show this week, George, in a conversation with you, but my ideal scenario at the moment would be, we've enjoyed the Champions League. We're there a little bit too early. I'd rather drop out of Europe altogether. I'd rather get to the Carabao Cup final and win it. And I'd rather finish in the Champions League positions at the end of the season. Obviously, I want to do everything. But for me, the Carabao Cup game is a priority. It's a cup win. And I think, Steve mentioned it on Wednesday night, but we'll reiterate it for the purpose of tonight's show. Steve mentioned, obviously we want to win everything. Kev said that we want to win everything, but, getting to the Carabao Cup final, if you win it, you get into the Champions League anyway. So from our perspective, it's a win-win with the Carabao Cup. That's my view, George.
And it's not a bad view. I'm still not convinced we're finished with the Champions League. But if we are, then we need to concentrate on domestic matters, I think, for this season anyway. And the Carabao Cup's a good shout. It's a one that's within my reach, within my grasp. We've done supremely well so far. nothing to stop work going all the way, I think, this time. So I think I tend to agree with you that that would be the next route into Champions League, possibly. The other thing is, of course, is that we're talking as though the league's over. It's far from over. There's still lots to happen there, and we'll be in the mix at the end. So, but I think at the end of the day, your analysis is a good one. That do you want to hang around in the Europa League? Because if you win that, you're getting the Champions League as well the next year. But no, I think concentration a little bit on the domestic scene. Have a real go for the Carabao Cup, and a real go at the Premiership title as well.
Yeah, Mitch, we've covered it this week already. You missed out on Wednesday's show, so give us your views. Interested to know what you think. What's your priorities?
The next game. That's the way Eddie looks at it. That's the way we need to look at it. If you want to push us into a corner, league games are more important, because the most logical way back into the Champions League is through the league. Carabao Cup. I would absolutely love to finally put some silverware back in that trophy cabinet. But if you're telling me it's at the expense of missing out on Champions League qualification, given the FFP situation and the fact that the Premier League changes their rules like a movable feast to suit, we need top 4 to keep going on the trajectory we're on. But the reality is, there's still enough in there. The team we sent out against Man United, would any of them gone 3-0 that night?
No.
They performed way above expectation and delivered something fantastic. If we then do it again against Chelsea and we end up in that final and take the trophy, I don't think there's a damn soul in the world could begrudge with that. Because by God, we've done it the hard way. And we've done it the hard way by fielding players outside of our regular Premier League squad on a regular basis in the competition. I think Eddie's approach is right. One game at a time. Your most important game's your next game, and everything will look after itself. Surely, if we beat Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, the draw's got to be a little bit kinder to it next time. If it isn't, even I might be making a tinfoil hat. Because I said it before, I'll say it again, I don't like to jump on the conspiracy theories. But I'm getting decidedly uncomfortable about the way, particularly domestic football, seems to be trying to find ways to clip our wings. And they're lucky FFP still in place. Because if it wasn't, we'd be blowing everybody away right now. And I think that's what they all know. And that's what they're all scared of. And so I think we stick with Eddie's view. Next game, one game at a time. And what comes our way, comes our way. And I think if we all take that attitude and we stick together with it, I think that's a wonderful rallying point. Because it does feel a little bit like we're under siege sometimes. It's becoming more and more blatant. The veils have slipped. Let's deal with the Newcastle problem, right? What problem is that? Well, that we're upsetting the status quo. That we'll put some of your precious little teams' noses out of joint. That we've done it by fielding reserve sides in the Carabao Cup. Nah. There's got to be a line which gets drawn. And as a club and as a fan base and everybody pulling together, we take that one game at a time. And we take everything one game at a time. And we'll get what we deserve in the end.
Okay, Steve, Alan Thompson's question is, what's more important, the Carabao Cup or the league game against Chelsea? But it's all important, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all important, and the big worry is, the big problem is that you can throw all your eggs in one basket and go for the Carabao Cup, and then it all goes wrong. And before you know it, Eddie's then getting slagged off because the team he played, or because of the injuries that he sustained right beforehand, or a situation that occurs just before the Carabao Cup game, and it doesn't go our way. And then it's like, well, he didn't take the Carabao Cup seriously. That's always the throwback that'll come our way. I'm with Mitch. The most important game's the next game. You then look and see, right, well, where are we now? You move on all the way up. You treat every game seriously. The Champions League isn't dead yet. The other important thing is that when you are a team that is showing ambition and is showing a keenness to take every game seriously, to take every competition seriously, especially the Champions League or the Europa Cup, or even the conference, the players from overseas see that you are a team that wants to get back into the Champions League, wants to perform in the Champions League because they want to be in the Champions League. The higher you and better you do in Europe, then the better quality of player that you will start to be interested in coming to your football club in the next 12 to 18 months. But you've got to be in the competition for those players to take you seriously in terms of wanting to come and be part of the. They're not going to come on a whim that you might be there. They're coming top quality players who are used to Champions League year in, year out, and they're the players that we're aspiring to get. They'll want Champions League football, so they'll want to be seeing us, making sure that we're doing everything in our power to be there. Yes, a cup is a cup success. The Carabao Cup would be great, absolutely, because we haven't won anything for 65 years. So would the FA Cup. So would the Europa League. So would the Champions League. So would the Championship. It would also be absolutely fantastic for the football club to get back into the top four at the end of the season and be qualifying for the Champions League. So we're still fighting on all four quarters, and that's the way we've got to do it. And I'm sure that's the way Eddie Howe is looking at it. I don't think he'll be prioritising one or the other at any time, because I don't think that the club would want that. I think it's an adventure that we're on, and we're just going to move forward. We're going to grasp every opportunity that comes our way. So that's what we've got to do. I might change my mind when I suddenly find we're in the Carabao Cup final and we've got a Champions League quarter final to be played the week later or something daft like that. That's when I'll change my mind and I'll be going prioritising. But that's why I'm a football fan, and I'm not running a football club as a director or an owner or a manager, because I don't have to make the difficult decisions.
A question by Steve Hasty. What's your cat called? Says Julie.
I've got two. Well, I don't have two. The daughters have two. Cassie and Cleo are called. A 16-year-old now. Hence the fact that you have cats named by a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old. So the previous ones were what were the previous ones called? Millie and Maggie. And now we've got Cassie and Cleo.
All right, there you go, Julie. Hope that's hope that gets you through the weekend. Benny says, Steve, Mitch, and George, did you see the Ruud Gullit interview with Simon Jordan this week? Could actually see his side of the argument regarding Sheeran Lee. Never thought I'd say that.
Yes.
All right, go on then, George, Steve.
Well,
George,
go on, Steve. You want to go first?
I listened to it this morning while I was driving, and it was great. It was really good. But perfectly honest, every interview that Simon Jordan does on that podcast has been fascinating because of the characters that he has on and the way that he delves into it. But it was interesting to hear Ruud Gullit's side of various things right the way through his career. Fascinating the way that his mindset and his attitude. there was a great throwaway. You know, obviously they talked about the fact that he dropped Shearer, and he said, "No, I didn't drop him. It was just the way that I wanted to play that game at that particular time." And then he goes on and explained that he had done very similar with Dennis Wise at Chelsea, where he called Dennis and said, "You know, you've good enough to do this, but you've got to play my way. This is the way I want to play." And then the boat was turned, and he mentioned an interview that he did, or an interview that he had with Gary Lineker, who tried to catch him out twice on the Shearer situation. And the first time he thought that was a bit naughty, but he took it and well. The second time, because Shearer was sitting in the room with him, and he said to Shearer, "Well, wasn't there he said to Lineker, wasn't there a time when Sir Bobby Robson wanted to sell you to Liverpool, Alan?" At which point Alan cut the conversation dead. "Don't go there, don't go there." So he says, "I wasn't trying to sell him because I just wanted to try something different that particular game." But I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But it's just fascinating to hear people. I don't think he was rewriting history his way or anything like that, because he talked about all sorts of situations in his career. But no, I found it quite fascinating, actually.
Me
George?
too. Good analysis, Steve. What it did confirm to me, where I thought when he came, and when I seen him as a player, what an intelligent man he is. He's nobody's fool, that's for sure. And he'd carefully thought about what he was doing about the Shearer situation, and I think from the way he described it. He just wanted. He was determined to have something different, and there was these two big guys in the dressing room that he knew weren't going to let him do something different if you didn't do something about it. But overall, I enjoyed it because it revealed quite a lot about him as a person as well. And I do remember what Steve's saying about the Shearer comments with Gary Lineker, though. Because the first time he was booby trapped. He got really stuck with it. He couldn't get out of it. But the second time he was certainly ready. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's worth a listen. But as I say, confirmed to me what an intelligent man he is.
Yeah.
What a thinker. You know, and I did find it a bit sad that we didn't cotton on to his sexy football idea. Because it would have done Newcastle good, but we all have mountains to climb. Rudd Hullet had Shearer and Lee to climb, I'm afraid.
What was also interesting, Steve, was that he used the Dennis Wise analogy, where he dropped Dennis Wise because he was just going out playing to the crowd at Chelsea when he was there, and he says, I took him the ones, I dropped them. He says, then I said, you know, we need to talk. He was told by someone else, look, you need to speak to Dennis. And he goes, at that point, people thought Dennis's career at Chelsea was over. He says, and we're talking about it. He says, and I explained to him why I hadn't picked him and why he was dropped. And he says, I genuinely thought that Dennis was good enough to play for England. He says, but he needed to stop playing to the crowd, and he needed to start playing football and start to listen to what the coaches were saying in a particular stage of the game. He says, I actually did. He says, and it prolonged his career and made him and did get him where he rightfully thought he could go. He says, but also at Newcastle, he said, I also had Gary Speed. He says, and Gary Speed was a wide man. He says, and I thought that Gary would benefit from playing more of the holding midfielder. He says, I thought that he could do it. I thought it would prolong his career. He says, and Gary took to it like a duck to water. He says, there was no complaints. He listened to what I said. He accepted what I said. He says, and I thought that he was outstanding as a holding midfielder, and it did prolong his career. And when he moved on, that's the position that he held down. And yes, it was because he was coming to the end of his career. He said, so there's little things like that. And it was also interesting to say, how would you have felt at Milan if you'd been treated in the same way? Well, I would have gone mad. I'd have gone scatty.
Fair enough. At least he was honest. I guess. Did Rude ever work again after us?
He was honest. I think it's a good interview.
Okay, 2 hours
No.
is up, lads. As always, fantastic. And big shout out to everybody in the chat. Mediterranean Media, yes, we do read the chat. Thank you for your comments. Nice to see a new face in the crowd.
Steve.
Thanks for all watching the show. Take care, says Jules. Quickly, George. Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, Neil was saying about people being nice. I had a taxi ride earlier in the week, and the taxi driver, when I got in, looked at us because he thought he was picking up Neil, and he picked up George instead. So on the way to the shop, he said to us, "Neil, George, are you the George off the telly?" I says, you mean nufc matters? Oh, he says, Friday night, I put the taxi away for 2 hours and I watched yous on the Three Amigos. And he says, but my favourite program's the Wednesday night one when they Ask George. The taxi goes away for that as well.
Big shout out to him. That's great stuff. On this weekend, though, there is only one way to finish the show, and it is with these words. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Never forget those who passed away, folks. Big weekend. Lads, Take care. Been an absolute blast, as always. I am back in the morning, 10 o'clock, pre-recorded show with George. Those were the days, 93-94 season. And on Sunday morning, we are back at 9 o'clock, Mitch, me, and Stu with the professionals. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Ta-ra, everybody. Ta-ra.